Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright. That there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, Rematch. We're back to take on the title in the 1979 brawler, Rocky II.
This guy just don't want to win, you know. He wants to bury you. He wants to humiliate you. He wants to prove to the whole world that it was nothing but some kind of a freak the first time out.
Rocky, his whole life was 1,000,000-to-1 shot, but he's about to show the world he's 1 in 1,000,000.
Why don't you stand up and fight this guy hard like you done before? That was beautiful.
Rocky II, the story continues.
Andy, I got to tell you, I had a good experience watching this movie, and it surprised me. It surprised me because I think that Rocky II revisits the sins of Rocky and absolves many of them. How'd you feel about it?
I enjoyed the film. I wasn't sure what to expect. It's this is all new territory for me now for quite a while. I was excited by it. It was entertaining. It was engrossing. I think you're right. I think it did absolve some of the issues that we had with the first film. I think it found some new issues of its own. So we can talk about that. And so it was interesting. For me, I think this one was a little bit more uneven as far as how I felt about it. There were some points that I felt were a lot lower than what I got in the first Rocky film, but it had some points that were tremendously high. And so I think to that end, it still did quite well for itself. I ended up really enjoying it.
Can we talk about what you mean by uneven? Because I didn't feel as much of that sort of unevenness in this to my understanding of the word, and I didn't have any of the lows. Maybe middling, but I didn't have any of the lows in this movie, and so I'm wondering can you lock into some specific things that hurt your feelings real bad?
Oh, well, I'm not saying it hurt my feelings real bad.
I feel like you were a little bit. You're a little bit saddened and
I'm not saying I've gone 15 rounds with it or anything like that.
Did your eyes look like Rock's eyes did?
Yeah, right. No, what I mean is the first film I felt had a nice, it was mostly a character film. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed just the pace of the film. I enjoyed the fights on either end of it. And I just enjoyed the way it kind of unfolded. I thought that was a nicely told story. I think Stallone, I would say wisely, repeated a lot of the successes of the last film. He keeps pretty much the exact same structure, a fight bookending everything else going on in the middle of the film, or two fights, I should say, one on each end of the movie. And but during the middle of the film, yes, he does come back and do some things that he didn't do as well the first time. I thought the training stuff with Mickey, there was actual training going on. We actually have some setups and payoffs within the training. We see that with the chicken, which was great, which was nice to see. And I really liked kind of the 70s character stuff. I liked that Rocky, he true to his word, he's retiring from boxing. He wants to live a life that his wife will be happy with. She's not a fan of this world, as we kind of see in this film. But the film lingers on some things that just really take the pacing down and just really made for a much slower time. And so to that end, the film would hit these sections that just really took the steam out of everything. And then it became kind of a slog until we got through it. And then things picked up again. The first time,
I'm guessing you might be referring to some of Rocky's money troubles.
Primarily, not even the troubles. Initially, it's the shopping spree. Like when he decides to go on a shopping spree, it just goes on forever. And it's like the same point is brought up at every single turn. Dealing with the car. She doesn't want him to. He does it anyway. He doesn't really know how to drive.
You want to have a great time? Go try and buy a watch with Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, buying watches, buying clothes, buying a house. It's like I've seen this same scene play out like 4 times now. I'm getting so sick of it. It was really, really tiring to watch. And I understand what he's doing, but it did not, there was no streamlining way to make it kind of work where we could get through all that. I mean, it's 40 years old. I get it. It's there's some pacing that by nature is going to struggle a little bit, but still, it just could have been so much better.
Right, for a movie that sort of invented the modern movie training montage, you'd think they'd be able to shoehorn a shopping montage and move some things along.
Exactly.
Yeah, but at some part they have to demonstrate just how dumb he is with money, and you can't quite do that as easily with a montage without it being a sketch. And I think hearing him talk about it, the way he talks about money and the way, frankly, she talks about money, I don't think they needed to do it as many times as they did, but they got clothes, they got jewelry, they got the house, they got the car, and then they kept coming back to the car with the fact that he couldn't actually drive the car, like which I thought was was funny once.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, it was fine. It was, so that was frustrating, and then the other one is the second half of the film. After he does go back into boxing, she goes through this pregnancy issues, and painfully, as the doctor says, strain of overwork.
I don't even know, what does that mean?
It's a 70s way of saying, they don't know what it is, but she must have been working too hard because she's a woman and she's pregnant, and she was moving big buckets at work. it was pretty lame, but it felt like 70s, storytelling. They didn't really know what women's troubles were.
Yeah.
That was frustrating, but that's not my gripe. My gripe is really, she falls into a coma, which I was really kind of surprised by that it went to a place like that. I thought that was actually pretty interesting, but then it really slowed the pace down. And I appreciate that Rocky was staying by her side and waiting for her to get better. And I appreciated all of that because I just liked him as a character, and I liked that he was doing that. But by the time we get to the end and she finally wakes up, which felt like, I felt like I'd been waiting for a year for her to wake up. It was tedious.
Yeah.
And as soon as she wakes up and she says, "I got one word for you, win." And Mickey, it was actually, I laughed out loud because he's just like, "All right, let's go." It's just like, let's get the hell out of here.
That is the moment I because that's the moment that gets us out of the doldrums of Rocky Balboa. Oh my God, he's Eeyore again, and then he stepped in poo, and it's the saddest when he walks so sad across the gym after trying to jump rope but not being able to do it, and it's just so sad that we needed the blessing of the matron. Right, this is another one of those archetypes. We had to have the matron come down and give the blessing to the action, to the risk, to take on the next the next major boss. And I think my kids see this as a run Harry run moment. Do you know what I mean? Or Barry run moment. And in Flash on TV, which we watch zealously here, there's this moment in the first couple of episodes of season 1 where the mentor character turns around and says into the headset of Barry, who's having trouble kind of being the Flash, he says, "Run, Barry, run," in this voice. And that is like the inspirational line of the movie. Whenever anybody needs to do anything, it's run, somebody with a name, run, comma separated identifier, run. And that's what that means. And this is that moment when they watch this movie, they hear that and they're like, "Oh, okay, Barry can be the Flash, Rocky could be the boxer. This is what it means." And we need that moment. And I think you're absolutely right. The Mickey bit absolutely ruins it, because it's over the top excitement coming from the old man.
That's not what ruined it for me.
What was it? What ruined it for you?
It's the amount of time it took to get to that point.
No,
I was right there with Mickey. I'm like, let's get this movie moving because it has died. This movie is in a coma.
Okay, that's fair.
I was 100% on Mickey's side.
That's fair. That's fair. But you know what's so funny about it is that I already felt like Mickey had that moment in the film when he comes to the house and says, "I think we knock his block off," and Rocky says, "Okay," and then they go and start training. And this was training against the guidance of his wife, and that was that sets up the beginning slog of sad training.
Right.
But I already felt like Mickey was kind of in there. I think his role in the hospital was interesting, and he's kind of a schizophrenic character. He doesn't know what he wants until he's kind of, "Yeah, you're a joke, and stop wasting my time, and well, now I'm never going to leave you. I'm going to be here by your side all the time. You want me to sit here? Well, I got nothing else to do." And so, but in the same, on the other side of that same coin, Mickey is actually a better character. As you said, we have some training. It absolves the film's sin in Rocky that it was Mickey coming to Rocky to chase him down, to want to be his trainer. Please let me train you. Well, in this case, Rocky has to come to him. Rocky has to sell him. Rocky has to beg the mentor to come back to his support. And I like that.
Yeah, I actually really liked Mickey through this. And I think my memory of the first film is that Mickey was like he is in this film, where he actually goes through the motions of really doing some training with Rocky.
Right.
I felt like, and it's funny because I'd never seen this one, but it just felt that way because I feel like Mickey's always been there in Rocky's corner. It just felt like this is the one where we really get that bit. And I really do like that. And I think Burgess Meredith actually, it's fun watching him play this crusty old trainer. I think he's great at it.
Yeah, I think so too. And this demonstrates that he actually has, even though his ideas are just crazy, like reference the chase the chicken sequence. It actually demonstrates in this movie that, in this world, in the Rocky cinematic universe, Mickey has some chops. Like his history is, I'm going to show you some things that are going to help you win this match.
He actually knows some things.
Yeah.
As a trainer, he's bringing his training tricks to the game, and he's using them to make Rocky a better boxer. And it's to that end and it's funny, that moment with the chickens made me think of John G. Avildsen, who directed the previous Rocky. And it's almost like it was weird because that was a moment that I felt like would have been a perfect moment to be in the first Rocky film, because that totally would have set up where Avildsen would have ended up with the Karate Kid. It's because that's exactly the type of paint the fence moment that we're getting.
That's right.
Later.
That's right. That's right. Wax the car, paint the fence, chase the chicken.
Exactly.
The other thing that I think is better about this movie, and maybe it's just that over the course of these two movies, it's such a slow build. It feels like a team is coming together. The first movie, even though we had Mickey in his corner eventually, like you say, because we didn't have as much of an investment in the training in the first movie, in their relationship, the mentor-mentee relationship, it didn't feel like we got enough of that until this movie. In this movie, we get him actually approaching Paulie and saying, "Hey, you want to be a part of the organization? I want to have you part of my team." We get to see that wonderful sequence in the press conference when Paulie screams out from the back, I'm not afraid of you or something. He starts yelling at Apollo from the back of the room over the head of the press. I love that little exchange. I just really like Paulie. And I don't think we get enough of Burt Young in this movie compared to the last one. We really got to see him stretch his performance legs. And in this one, he's a little bit of a one-trick pony. But I still really, really like him.
I do too, and I think that's the downside to bringing a lot of these characters on as just members of the team now, because Burt had a role in the last film. It was not a part of the team, but it was this outside guy who wanted to get in on the career that working for the bookie that Rocky was working with, and and working at the meat factory, and I felt like there was an actual character there who was struggling and trying to figure out what to do with his life. And I really enjoyed that about him. In this film, he ends up largely being in Rocky's corner, just one of Rocky's guys. And it doesn't take anything away. It just doesn't give Burt Young the opportunity to have those moments again. And just to not stand out.
I think so too, and I think it'll be interesting to watch these movies as we progress, because I think you'll continue to see different sides of Burt Young's chops as the role of Paulie evolves. It's really satisfying to look forward to. My memory of it is now a little bit sparse, but I'm really looking forward to watching his relationship with Rocky as his career changes. It's good stuff. So, okay, how about Apollo? Apollo is in a different spot here too.
And I really liked that. I really liked seeing this boxer who was trying to do something that was good and unique and fun in the last film by bringing on this young boxer to create a big, basically it was a marketing scam for himself, since this other boxer had been injured. And, he came up with something to still draw crowds, to look like he's kind of, supporting the boxing community and everything. I really liked kind of what he set up in that first film, despite, as we said last time, the phone book search that he did to find Rocky. In this case, this is a guy who's now broken by what he did. He created this monster, really. And aside from his name, even though it was kind of the split decision, some people say he won, some people say he lost. But he feels ruined, and he's getting all this hate mail. People hate him and said he fixed it, and his ego is crushed, and he feels really broken. I really, really enjoyed seeing this side of him. I really could have used more. I thought it was such an interesting character. And that being said, there was still some really interesting moments between him and Rocky. Initially, just that first moment is right after the fight from the previous film, because this literally starts with the last fight from the last film. But after that, while they're both in wheelchairs getting wheeled out to ambulances, they have this great fight from the wheelchairs, which was great.
Yeah.
But then there's this really quiet moment, and I was not expecting it. And this is what I think Stallone does really nicely with these characters in his scripts. He allows these moments where Rocky, in the hospital, in the middle of the night, comes over to Apollo's room and kind of wakes him up and talks to him. He's just like, "Did you give me your best?" And Apollo's like, "Yeah, I did." And it's like, "Thank you. Thank you." And it's just like, that was a really amazing moment. I was totally not expecting to see it. And I don't know. I felt like there's so much honesty with it. I really respected that, and I loved what he was doing there. And all the way through the final fight, and the way that it ends, and the way these two characters kind of end that last fight, I found it to be a great relationship, and I really, really admired it.
Yeah, I really did too. And I think Carl Weathers is used just as a performer. He's better in this thing. Every time we cut back to him and, his wife, Marianne, played by Sylvia Meals, I think that they are great together. And, she's keeps trying to move him on, come on, get out of this. And he just can't do it. I mean, he's in the middle of a PR nightmare, and he's trying to figure out what can I do to get out from under this? And I think his suffering is so much more legitimate than in the last movie, which was just, all show, all promotion. And this is, a legitimate human, exercise for him. And I found it very powerful. And to the point where his rage at that PR event makes him almost the sympathetic character, right? He is, as his trainer says, you realize they're setting you up to look like the villain. And he says, whatever it takes, man, whatever it takes. Well, he did. He set himself up. He actually walked right into it to look like the villain and to lose. And Rocky, he's so sort of empty-headed and naive in this movie that his responses, are it's almost sort of that Truman Show level of naivete. He just doesn't know what he's saying, and it makes him sound even smarter than, or maybe being there is a better,
right? Exactly.
It's a better match for this. That what he says, even though it's true to his world, when you take it that his double meanings are unintentional double meanings are really they work very well against Apollo Creed, and I think that's really strong in this movie. And I'm with you. I could have used more Apollo Creed, more Apollo Creed.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know this, but Sylvia Meals, who plays his wife, she's in this one. She's in Rocky IV, and then she sadly died in 2011. So, hence the reason she did not end up returning for Creed.
Oh,
yeah, very sad.
How about Adrian?
I had some issues last time with Adrian. I think as I thought about it and I watched this film, I do think that I ended up hitting it on the head as far as what my problems were with that film.
Do tell.
She was such a shy person, and she turned and she kind of opened up and became somebody for Rocky to fall in love with, and I really enjoyed that. Once they fall in love, you never see her in any other situations with other people, and other than Paulie. And so you never really got to kind of see that shyness continuing. And I felt like it was too big of a change for her character. And I think that in this film, that's resolved, because you do see her interacting with tons of people. And I felt like they really did a good job of maintaining that that character, while still being kind of open and loving with Rocky. I actually thought I thought she was just much smarter, much more smartly written in this film. And I think that it was well done, the way that she interacts with Rocky, the way that their relationship is, the way that she talks to him when he's spending money, and the way that she succumbs to him. The way, you know, when he wants to go boxing, like that moment when he's saying, you can't, don't, I can't remember what he says, but don't stop me from, don't ask me to stop being a man. There were a lot of nice moments. I really enjoy that. It was only once they get to that point, it's really the first half where I think she's working really well. Once it kind of goes into the coma and all that, then I feel like there's a lot of writing there that's done specifically for the film to just kind of move on. And I don't think it works as well, but I really, really liked what they did that first half of the film.
Yeah, I did too. I think some of her even more interesting sequences are when he's trying to. I'm thinking specifically of when he's trying to get into acting. Right, he's trying to become a pitchman. And I was curious your take on that particular sequence, and the director, played by John Plachette, because I think that is very much the world you live in right now.
It was very, very funny to see that playing out. It was pretty ridiculous, and it was to the point where it was frustrating that the actor playing the director was so just stereotyped. And I'm not saying I haven't seen like big directors before, but this guy was so over the top, so just, I don't know, so rude, so obnoxious that it all of a sudden it just became totally unbelievable. And you're already being asked to buy into Stallone being such an idiot when he's on set doing this, that it became a little more difficult to also buy into this guy being so over the top.
Right. And that's the challenge that I have with the scene, that though the difference, the stereotypes between the two are so far apart. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody so dumb in The Cage, and I've never seen anybody quite so condescending. I only work with professionals.
Yeah.
It's just over the top. But there is this moment where we get her standing there, and she gets, I think, one line. She gets one word. I think she just says yes or something very rude or something like that. And it's I just like that she's there. I like that she trucks along with Rocky and all these different sort of endeavors. I think it's nice.
Well, there's that great moment just when the two of them are talking after he's dressed in his outfit and he's gotten all his makeup on and everything. And he's asking her, do I look dumb? And she's like, no, it's okay. Because other people are around. And this was the way that she's written. And then when it's just the two of them, as they're walking to set, he's like, no, tell me the truth. Do I look dumb? She's just like, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
that's right.
I love that. That was great. That was a great moment.
A little bit of the fighting stuff. First of all, the training montage. We got to talk about the training montage because it's a little bit different. After we get through the introduction of the chicken and he's starting to train and we get the win, Rocky, win, then he goes to work. And we're back in Philly and we get some running. And then he becomes the Pied Piper of Philadelphia running children. What did you think of this?
They say,
where is he leading the children?
Yeah, this was one of those things that I can just see Stallone doing, agreeing to the mayor of Philadelphia. Let's do this. It's going to be great for the city. It's going to, it's just a great way to kind of tie everything together. And I can totally see the sell on this. This is something, let's get all the kids out of school. They'll come do this. This is something every kid's going to want to do. And I'm sure, I mean, God, if I was a kid, a little kid and I got to go run with Rocky and be in the movie for a day, I mean, absolutely. And they had over 800 kids show up to do this. And it was, I thought it was a fantastic little moment. I was like, initially I was like, okay, what are they going to do in this one that's going to kind of amp up the moment of him training and finally making it up those stairs and kind of pumping his fists in excitement. That was a great moment in the first film. And obviously it's iconic because, as I said last time, they have a statue of him up at the top of those stairs now. I mean, that's how iconic it is. But I was like curious. And as soon as kids started like kind of running with him, I'm like, oh, I see where this is going. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of rolling my eyes. but then it happens, and I couldn't help but I'm like, oh, this is so great. This is so great. It was pathetic.
Oh, it delights me that you were taken by that. I am so glad. I'm so
Totally
glad.
was.
Could
Totally
have gone
was.
so much worse. I'm with you. The thing that I love so much about the sequence is that when it starts, it's actually sort of sinister, right? When these kids are slightly out of focus behind him, and he's running hard, and it's hard not to look at that. If you look a little bit sideways, it looks like he might be struggling in his run, like he's really pushing it, and these kids aren't. And every cut, with every single turn, there are more kids. And I think if this were any other movie, this would be a damned sinister way to go. The boxer who's about to be devoured by 800
Like cannibal children.
Cannibal children, right. And where is everybody else? Where are the adults that came with the children? I don't see the adults, and don't they care that their children has just followed a sweaty man running down the streets?
Everybody loves Rocky, man.
Everybody loves Rocky.
Every Philadelphia people, they all know who he is. They see him run by, and the parents go, "Oh, it's okay.
It's just Rock."
It's
Hey, Billy, go follow Rock. Go carry his spit bucket.
Oh my.
Oh, all right. Let's see. We've got the fight. Let's talk about the fight. I think my hunch is, and my hunch is they did some work on not only the fight choreography, but I think this goes into the way they shot it, introducing some really cool elements into the big fight at the end of the film. What do you think of the final fight?
Yeah, I agree. I think they did some nice changes with it. And you know what was interesting? I didn't mention this last time, but Sylvester Stallone is a boxing choreographer for this and the last one, which I thought was pretty interesting that he's actually in there kind of figuring this stuff out.
Right.
This is a guy who really is in tune with this world and is doing a really good job of putting together a story about it. The fight was like the first one. You get the first couple of rounds, and then you kind of speed through all the stuff in the middle, and then you get to the end round. So it's, again, following the same pattern that he used last time, but it works. I thought it actually worked really nicely, and I enjoyed the way that it was shot. There was some nice moments in here. I particularly enjoyed the moments where it goes slow motion. I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of give us a sense of the being inside the minds of these guys as they're fighting and how it feels after going through so many rounds in a boxing match. I thought that was really interesting. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And, I was because Stallone, he directed this one too. This is, after the last film, they wanted a sequel, and Avildsen declined to direct it because he was working on Saturday Night Fever, which actually he ended up getting fired from. So Stallone fought to direct this one, and they knew that a lot of the success came from him. So he jumped on, so they let him, and he jumped into it and went whole hog. I was wondering about that as I watched this. I was like, okay, so what is it that Stallone is doing that Avildsen didn't? I felt like Avildsen brought a lot of that kind of 70s character stuff to it, and just kind of this tone. And I thought Stallone was a little, I don't want to say glossy, but it just felt things sometimes felt a little safer, a little more standard. And so I was wondering about, by the time we got to the fight, how I'd feel about that. And I felt like actually the fight surprised me with some of those things. And so in the end, I was like, and honestly, the way that the fight builds and the way the fight gets to that climactic moment, and when Rocky finally wins, like I knew that he won. That was kind of what I always heard. He loses the first one, he wins the second one. But I was right there. Like, I thought the fight, editing, the pacing, the directing, the acting, everything in it worked incredibly well. I found it incredibly gripping. And yeah, I thought Stallone did a rock solid job with it.
The parts that I have a difficulty with are, that middle arc that you talk about, you kind of rush through the middle stuff. Well, it feels like a clips review. And I have trouble with that. Like I want to it doesn't really tell me a story. It just shows, snapshots of what's going on to show time passing. And I wanted a little bit more of a story because I've waited a long time to get to this bout. But I do like that they set up stakes for each corner, right? We have them going in where Mickey says, you just hold off. You fight like a right-handed boxer until I tell you to go southpaw. And on the other corner, it's these guys in Apollo's corner are saying, don't go for the knockout. Don't go for the knockout. And he's saying, I'm going to go for the knockout. And it just keeps getting beaten up. I love those stakes, and I love when we finally get to that final corner. There's a challenge to those stakes, as these guys are so cemented in what they are going to do and how they're going to fight this match. I couldn't quite tell if I didn't feel that they really made good on Mickey and Rocky's debate about going southpaw. Did that feel resolved to you?
It was. That was one of those elements that was and it could be because I don't know enough about boxing. And when he's boxing, I kept saying, well, I feel like he's punching with his left a lot. Like I was struggling with that. I'm like, he's supposed to be hitting with his right, but he's still using his left. And so I just don't know enough about boxing.
Yeah.
Because then when he's like, and that whole southpaw thing, because I thought Rocky said, no, it's going to feel like cheating now. Or something like that. And I'm like, but then apparently he's doing it. And again, maybe it's just me and my inability to figure out which swings are which in a boxing match. But apparently he does switch to southpaw, and that's kind of what takes him out. Well, and really it's because the guys at the ringside are telling me so.
Yes,
thank
and that's
goodness
good
for announcers in a boxing match.
Right. Well, and that's what I couldn't see. Well, because I feel like I heard them say, "Yo, he just hit him with a left," and I couldn't tell if that was they were surprised or if they were just calling, left hand. That seemed a little bit arbitrary, but I'm with you. I was right there at the end, and the slow motion stuff I thought was exceptional. It was just really a great evolution of the boxing match in movies over the first movie. I thought it was really great, and I think it's so much fun to see that and to know what kind of fighting is yet to come. I'm just really excited to watch these more modern movies with you. This is going to be great.
I think it's interesting that the whole switch to fighting right-handed wasn't actually scripted. That what happened was there was an accident on set. Stallone was doing a bench pressing contest with a bodybuilder, and he ripped his pectoral, which sounds horrible. He ripped his left pectoral muscle and needed to have surgery. And because of that, he couldn't fight with his left hand. And so that became an element that, they used to put that into the script, which, again, I think there were elements of it that worked, that it could have been stronger, but I thought it did make for a pretty interesting story element.
Oh, I thought it was great. And all the training montages were impacted. Watching him do all those, all those
right-handed
push-ups and all of that great stuff. I mean, to learn to fight right-handed, that actually worked. I mean, it made it kind of a dramatic arc. What a smart pivot. And, there are only a handful of actors that could, convincingly pull that off. That's
sure
lucky.
Clearly, this film, its production did have a few issues crop up that caused them to have to do some script work, because in addition to that bit with getting injured, Talia Shire had another project coming on right on the heels of this one, another film that she was involved with that she had to leave for that production. It was called Old Boyfriends. And so the whole end fight sequence had to be written or reworked so that she had to watch it from home, because she couldn't be on set and she had to actually go shoot this other movie. And so all of the stuff with her in the house with Paulie as they're watching, all of that was filmed months later, toward the end of this shoot. And so,
even that works, right? Narratively, even that works for me. The fact that she couldn't be there for health reasons, like I didn't mind that. And I actually think it made it stronger when he calls out to her at the end. His longing for her. I think that played.
Yeah, I do too. I liked that a lot better than the doctor saying, strain of overwork.
Okay, that's fair. You mentioned some things that bug you about the script, and I'm wondering if it's the little things. You look at what Stallone is doing, what they're doing with the script and the direction here. If one of those things, like we said, the robe joke in the last movie we liked, that was good. The robe joke here, did that play?
Well, the robe joke we never mentioned in the last one. I think we talked about it off the air.
Maybe you and I talked about it. We should talk about it now.
Off the air. Yeah, the robe on the last film, they actually made a joke in the script because the robe was too big. It wasn't made very well, and so it arrived that way, and so they were like frustrated because it didn't look as good as they wanted it to, and so they decided to just ad lib this little quip about this is this is all they had, or whatever the line was. I can't remember now. And so they made a little joke and they wrote it in, which worked nicely. And then I thought it was great that we actually got that nice nod here. It was like a return of the robe joke this time, saying, "Oh, it's a lot better than that one I had last time," right?
And then the fact that they riff on it a little bit, and it ends with Rocky saying, "Yeah, I think it's cute." I actually thought that was great. But he does turn around and make a condominium joke, and I felt like that was a touch that might have offended you.
It didn't offend me. I just was like,
there was a sensibility. There was a filmmaking sensibility in you, Andy, that was offended.
Idiocy is what it was. I mean, I understand that Rocky is not the brightest bulb in the drawer, but I don't know. It just this joke was just one. It was there just to be a joke, right? It doesn't actually go anywhere. It's not like his buddy, the loan shark, Gazzo. It's not like he then goes on to say, no, condominiums, houses. I want you to invest in these houses. Like, the conversation does not continue, which tells me the whole thing was there just to be for that stupid joke.
Right. They literally walk out of camera. Right. It's very sitcom.
That's the sort of moment that popped up in this, that I felt like maybe Avildsen wouldn't have done that. Like, those are the sorts of things that we get now. I'm like, that was a rough one.
Yeah, we needed a it just felt ugly.
And one other thing that fits in with that, I think, and this I think goes to Stallone directing, and I just feel like Avildsen handled things a little better toward the end of the film. Right before the match, Rocky's running late. He leaves his place, and then he races over to the church. He pulls up and he yells for the Italian priest, who for whatever reason is strictly Italian, and he yells for him to give him a blessing before he runs off to the match. And that was another of those moments that I'm like, I don't feel like Avildsen would have had that moment in the film. It felt like something that Stallone thought was kind of cute. And honestly, it probably was a nice little moment that won people over, because, a lot of people are religious and they enjoy these little things. For me, it was just like, he's late for this match. This is getting silly now. And here he is. He has to stop at the church real quick. To me, that was another moment that just didn't need to be there.
You want to talk about getting
knowing that Stallone, knowing that Stallone is going to continue directing these for a little while, it does. I think he is, doesn't he? Continue directing these for a bit.
He does. Absolutely.
It makes me a little nervous about the territory we're going to be going into. So I guess
there may be reason for that. I don't know. There may be.
I'm curious to see.
Just keep an open mind, Andy.
Yeah, I will.
So far, so good. I really liked Bill Butler's camera on this one. I actually think it was solid. There's he's was a solid utility player here. But when we get to the fights, I think is where he the work really shines. And I think I was able to keep the fight straight. I was able to see the action. I was able to track with what they were doing. He kept with a lot of that really kind of cool 70s angle work. And in particular, God, there's some really striking sequences. One where Rocky tries to kind of collect his thoughts. He goes into the bathroom of the gym, and there's like this security camera angle on Rocky as he's leaning up against the stalls. And I really like it. Like, I just find myself really attracted to the way the images were captured on screen. I think he did a great job.
We've talked about him with Jaws, and that may be it, but certainly a cinematographer that knows how to shoot a project. He's done some great stuff. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Grease, The Conversation, just some really fantastic 70s films under his belt. And then he's gonna stick with Rocky for a few. So we'll be seeing more of his work in the coming weeks in our conversations.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I think, paired with Stanford Allen as editor, I think it's just a great pairing, particularly for properties like this that have these, like, sports movies in general require such an attentive editor to keep the plays on screen. And I think he does a fantastic job here. And I don't think we've talked about Stanford Allen, have we?
No.
This might be new, but he's, we might have, or we might in the future, because he actually did a little bit of work with the good Mel Brooks that we talked about recently. So I would love one day to talk about Young Frankenstein, and that would give us a good excuse.
Even though he's only assistant editor on that, but yes.
Doesn't matter. His name has been dropped, Andy.
We're still going to talk about him. His
name has been dropped.
Bill Conti's back doing music.
Yep.
I feel it's interesting. The music is as inspirational as ever, but I largely felt like we were getting exactly the same that we got last time. It was weird because I loved it, but I felt like after it was over, I'm like, did we hear any new music? I wasn't quite sure.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. Although Frank Stallone does get to sing a few more songs in the street for us.
He gets a solo. Gets a nice solo.
Oh my goodness, yes,
over the street. Thank God we still live. We're watching movies about a time. At least my kids can see what it was really like, Andy, when we were youths, when we were growing up, and people just randomly sang on the street corners. I'm just glad I can introduce them to that world, that real world.
Very real, very real. It's like watching my own childhood.
Any other nuggets you pick up here?
The baby in the film is actually Sergio Stallone, Sylvester's own son.
Oh,
well, there you go.
So
it's a very difficult name to say because it's not like Sergio. No. It's like Seargeoh.
But is that how does he pronounce it? Sergio?
Yeah, according to as the how to pronounce guides that I found online, it's like Sergio. It's like a French Sergio. Another little interesting bit, and I missed this in the credits last time, but the first 5, I think, the first 6 Rocky movies are all dedicated to Jane Oliver. And I was like, who is this mysterious Jane Oliver? I wasn't quite sure. Jane Oliver was none other than Sylvester Stallone's first personal manager. She actually died of cancer in 1975 at the age of 46, so a very young age. And he said he always has felt indebted to her for helping him kickstart his career. And so he has dedicated the films to her. The first 6 Rocky films have all been dedicated to her. Isn't that nice?
That's really touching.
I hear things like that and I say, this Sylvester Stallone is a lot like Rocky. Like, there are so many elements in this man that I have always misjudged because I'm like, Rocky, Commando, or not Commando, Cobra, what was the other guy's name? Rambo. My God. All these characters that he's played that are so, kind of thick and just, action movie star sorts of things. I just don't ever put him there. And so it's interesting to see this in these films. I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things even today, when I watch interviews with him, I am really moved by how incredibly smart he is.
He's an interesting guy. I'm trying to think, like, what was probably the first movie of his that I actually watched, because I think that growing up, he was one of those guys that you more often made fun of because of kind of the, hey, yo, Adrian, like that sort of stuff that you would just say without actually having seen his movies. And I ended up, I don't know, I missed most of his movies. I think the first one I saw might have been Cliffhanger in 93, if you can believe that. I missed everything before then, but I've certainly gone and caught up with a lot before that. And I think that, I enjoy his stuff. I think Victory is a really interesting soccer film. I've never finished watching First Blood. It's one that I keep meaning to go back to, but I think that there's I was enjoying it. I need to finish it. Fist was an interesting kind of union film. I think that he's a guy who's done some good stuff. I think like in the 90s, he did Copland, which I really liked.
Yes. Oh yeah. Copland was amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a guy, I mean, I know that he started in his first movie was a porn, but he did a good job of trying to find ways to kind of get out of that and get into film and do other things. And I really appreciate that with him. And I love that even after the first Rocky, he did direct a film. He directed Paradise Alley before he went on to this one. And just has always been trying to find ways to better himself and do a lot of really interesting things. Even like the Expendables franchise, like he keeps inventing himself and reinventing himself. He's a very interesting person, and I may not like his films all the time, but I find him a very interesting guy now.
The movie that you're referring to is Sylvester Stallone in The Party at Kitty and Stud's. And Kitty and Stud are lovers. They enjoy a robust sex life, which includes some things that I don't know if we can say on a podcast. Stud. So I'll skip those words, and I'll then say Stud does some things to Kitty. I'll skip those words. Then 3 women come over for a party, and Stud, I'm going to skip some words there, one after the other. That's the description of The Party at Kitty and Stud's, 1970. That is and he's actually credited. Wow, here's an interesting thing. The box cover artwork shows Stud, and he's got kind of a fur coat on. He's looking longingly into the middle distance up and to the left. But the name that is credited on the cover of the box is Italian Stallion.
Yeah, so in 1976, after Rocky, they re-edited the film and re-released it as the Italian Stallion to capitalize on his fame from that movie.
That was smart.
Yeah, it's funny because it became almost an urban legend that I didn't even know if he actually had ever done something like that, but it turns out he had. So it was an urban legend that's actually not an urban legend. Because it's real. There it is.
Not yes, it is legendary.
Yes indeed.
It's right there. All right. So that is fascinating. I'm totally lost.
Where do we go from there? So speaking of Stallone, so we're going to talk about kind of sequels of this franchise, but what I also found was interesting is he actually wrote the novelization for this, and what's interesting is he wrote it in the first person. He wrote it as first person narrative told by Rocky.
Wow,
that sounds very interesting. I'd love to hear Rocky Balboa reading that
audiobook.
Reading that.
Audible.com/ and then it's Rocky 2. No results.
Oh.
Andy, well, that makes my night worse.
The world is not complete yet.
But at least we all have that pornography.
Jeez.
Anyhow, so that's with the book. Let's talk about how it did at awards season.
Well, unlike its predecessor, this film, it was loved, but it wasn't a critical success at award season. It only had 2 wins with 2 other nominations. The wins were for the American Movie Awards, it won Best Film, and the People's Choice Awards, it won Favorite Motion Picture. The other nominations at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. He went from Best Oscar nomination for Best Actor to a Worst Actor nomination at the Stinkers, but he lost to Robbie Benson in the film Walk Proud. And then in 2009, the Satellite Awards gave it a nomination for Best Overall Blu-ray Disc for the Rocky The Undisputed Collection, which is the first 6 films, but that lost to the Star Trek 2009 3-disc Blu-ray.
I'm disappointed about this Stinkers Bad Movie Award thing. I think that is undeserved.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think it's very nice.
All right. Well, it's definitely not nice.
I think the Stinkers are a stinker. They win the Stinker Award from us.
They are just not nice. That's the not niceys. Let's talk about the box office. How to do it at the box office.
Well, Stallone's foray into directing, the first time in the franchise, he began with 7 times what the first film had, an estimated $7 million, or about $23.2 million in today's dollars. Rocky II was released on June 15th, 1979, on a pretty busy weekend. It had to compete against The In-Laws, Butch and Sundance the Early Days, Prophecy, and The Water Babies. But it did well for itself, becoming the 3rd highest grossing film of the year, only behind Kramer vs. Kramer and the Amityville Horror. And just as an aside, Pete, we have now talked about 5 of the top 10 grossing films from 1979. Kramer vs. Kramer, Apocalypse Now, this, Star Trek the Motion Picture, and Alien. There you go.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
Us. Have you seen Prophecy? Is that one is that one you like? It strikes me as one you might be
never seen it.
You might be interested in. Also stars Talia Shire.
I've never seen it.
Interestingly enough, it's a John Frankenheimer thing. I think that's something you want to watch. It's the tagline is she lives, don't move, don't breathe. There's nowhere to run. She will find you. A log company's waste mutates the environment, creating a giant killer bear monster.
Oh, is that Prophecy?
Yeah.
What am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of The Prophecy with Christopher Walken.
That's totally what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that happened much, much later.
That was 95.
Right.
This is Prophecy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Armando Sante.
Wow. This one, I totally have seen this poster before.
Yeah.
Is this the one where it was like first person camera as the bear?
I don't know.
Hey, Richard Dysart's in it. I totally have to watch this movie now.
John Hawkes is Armando Sante plays John Hawkes.
Anyway,
All right.
Rocky II did go on to make $85.2 million domestically and $115 million everywhere else, raking in a total of about $662.6 million in today's dollars. That means the film didn't do as well as its predecessor, but it was still a success, earning an adjusted profit per finished minute of $5.4 million. And Pete, I will also throw this in there that, there was this kind of belief that back in the day, a sequel would only do about 30 to 40% of the business of its predecessor. Well, Rocky II brought in about 75% of what its predecessor did. So even if it didn't make more than its predecessor, it still showed everybody up.
All right. Well, I like it. I'm glad to hear that you also, overall, I feel it's fair to say you like it.
I think that's fair to say.
Am I lying? That's fair to say. All right, good. So we're off to a great start for this particular series. Very excited about where we stand on number 2. How about we head over and rank it?
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You'll see all the movies we've talked about on this show. But if you tap the word flickchart, that'll take you right over to this movie where you can add it to your catalog and see how it stands up to ours.
First up, Rocky II, or Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet.
Rocky II.
Rocky II. Rocky II or Fargo. Fargo, please.
Fargo.
Rocky 2 or Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance? I'm going to say Rocky 2.
That's a great question. You really are Rocky 2.
I
huh?
really am, yeah.
Okay.
Rocky 2 or 12 Monkeys? I'm going with the Monkeys.
I'll go with the Monkeys.
Rocky 2 or Rebel Without a Cause?
Rocky 2.
Rocky 2. Rocky 2 or Wild Tales?
Rocky 2.
I'm
pretty soft. I might not fight on it.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to go 15 rounds on this one. We're going to have 15 rounds jokes for this whole thing. I'm kind of torn.
Andy, you've really got me on the ropes.
I'm going to say Wild Tales.
Okay.
Okay. Rocky 2 or Targets? Oh, wow.
I'm going to say Targets.
I am too. Yeah. Rocky 2 or Interstellar?
Interstellar.
Boy. Yeah, me too. The things that happen when you watch a movie like that the second time.
Yeah. Truth.
Rocky 2 or Escape from the Planet of the Apes?
Rocky 2.
I love Escape from the Planet of the Apes, but I'm going to say Rocky 2 as well. Well, that lands Rocky 2 at spot 132 on our chart out of 388 films. Pretty solid.
Nice.
You know, it's really funny. I went to rank this one, and like I said, it's got some moments that I definitely struggled with. But man, are its highs high, and man, does it end the right way, because on such a high note, it's hard to kind of get off that high. And so I ended up landing at 851 out of 4,088, which is 2 spots on my chart below Rocky.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was really surprised.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
This one ran into a little bit of difficulty on my chart, and so it's frustrating where it landed. It is at 267 out of 1,056, which puts it at 75% on my chart, which is lower than I think. If I'm going by the algorithm, it says it should be 3.5 stars, and I'm still a 4-star on this movie. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was as good as the first one overall, just because of the introduction to the character, but it solves so many problems, narrative problems, that I think the first one didn't get quite right. And the boxing is so much better that I'm forgiving some of the middling stuff that dragged it down much further for you. Interestingly, this one is, and I'm not going to tell you what, but as of my current ranking of the Rocky movies on my chart, this movie, Rocky, the original, is number 1. Rocky 2 is actually number 3.
Oh.
And there is a movie we have yet to watch that actually inserts itself right between 1 and 3. It would be number 2, and I can't wait to get there.
I'm glad you clarified that for me.
Yes. The one that comes between 1 and 3.
Oh. 1.75.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So what about you on the star rating over at letterboxd.com/thenextreel?
I also gave it 4 stars and a heart. Look at that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Heart it up.
Indeed, indeed.
All right. So where do we go, Andy, from here?
We are going to be going just a few years forward. We're going to be jumping up to Rocky 3, which will be an interesting one to look at. Rocky 3 came out in 1982, so another 3-year jump to this film. And I am again, I know this is where I now enter territory where I really, like, other than knowing who he fights, I know nothing about the film.
Well, this is a good one. I mean, again, it's written by Sylvester Stallone and directed by Sylvester Stallone. Again, the gang is all here. Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, Burgess Meredith. Tony Burton's back as Weathers' trainer. And, of course, we meet both Clubber Lang and Thunderlips in this movie. This of all of the Rocky movies, 3 and 4 are the two that are most inextricably tied to the period in history. This one culturally, the other one politically. And so I'm really, I think you have to, if you were to put on a lens, put that on and see if that helps you, helps you engage the film.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, I
All
look
right.
forward to it even more now. Or
Me too.
do I? If you want to hear more of us, but you can't wait until next week's show, check out our new show, The Marvel Movie Minute.
We're talking about the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. We started with 2008's Iron Man, and we are in the heat of it now.
Indeed we are. You can support that show and all of our shows over on patreon.com/thenextreel.
When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
the kids have spoken, Andy.
Oh, yes, they have. I love
Thanks
these
to
kids.
Common Sense Media. They're great. They're bright young reviewers. That's what we're showcasing here.
Here, here.
Not as many of the. I am glad to see, unlike some of the reviewers last week who felt like 6-year-olds should be watching Rocky. We don't have that sort of catalog of the very young reviewers for this movie, and so where would you like to start?
I'll go ahead. We'll start
All right.
high. I got a 5-star by a 15-year-old teen who goes by the name The Joe F. The best sequel to an original. Rocky II is one of the best sequels ever made. It shows the next step in the underdog's life. Nothing drastically changes, which is acceptable because no one's life really changes fast. It moves slowly, depending on what you do and how you challenge yourself at life. That is what Rocky II is telling us. Nothing happens to Rocky after the fight, so he must decide if he can do the rematch with Apollo Creed and take a bigger risk for the title. This movie has much more dialogue and drama that kids that are 8 to 14 won't understand, which is why I don't think it would be a good kids movie. Overall, Rocky II is the appropriate sequel to the first because it shows how today's heroes are quickly forgotten. This title contains positive messages, positive role models, and sexy stuff.
Wow, how quickly our heroes are
That's
so
right.
quickly forgotten. Andy, wow.
Yeah.
Well, mine comes from a teen who is 14 years old. He is goes by the moniker Tom Cruise fan.
I love
He
that.
actually gives it a 3-star review. Predictable from Tom Cruise fan. Rocky II movie review is the heading. Rocky is one of my 20 favorite films of all time. I want to stop there.
I think
won't,
this
but
14-year-old uses Flickchart, Pete.
I think so too. This is yes. If it's in the 20, shouldn't you just give us a number? Don't you think? At what point do you just give us an okay? Going into this movie, I was pumped. Overall, it was kind of disappointing to me. Rocky II, it's not an awful movie at all. It's fun to watch. The acting and directing is very good. The boxing sequences are great as well. The writing was solid for the most part. My main problem with the movie is that it dragged in some parts. Also, Rocky II kind of feels bloated and over-exaggerated at times. It felt a lot like the original, but I feel that the style of Rocky was better than Rocky II. I still enjoyed watching the movie. It was interesting to see Rocky train. I was disappointed, but still, it is a good film. This title contains language.
Language. I guess
Now-
a Tom Cruise fan didn't catch the sexy stuff.
No, did not catch the sexy stuff. It's pretty much your review. And I was wondering if maybe you're a Tom Cruise fan.
Well, Pete, I hate to admit it, but
That's not a bad little review, right?
no, it's actually
Tom
pretty
Cruise
good.
fan nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. And, even pointing out that you got to see Rocky training. So, yeah.
Yeah, bloated, over exaggerated. Condominium. Nailed it. Thanks, kids.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great movies, so many great conversations. But it's a lot of work. Producing this show week after week does require a lot behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We had some great films in Season 8 that started their lives as books or plays, and you can find all of them on our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals.
That's the site where listeners can find links to purchase all the source material behind the adapted films we covered, from Season 1 up through our current season.
For part of Season 8, we had a series celebrating the 50th anniversary of films from 1968.
We talked about 2001 and 2010 for our Odyssey series, both adapted from Arthur C. Clarke's novels. Man, the second one was so much better than the first, right?
Don't you even get me started. Need I bring up Under the Cherry Moon again?
Yes, also so much better.
Wait, no, that's not what I...
Planet of the Apes kicked off its series based on the novel by Pierre Boulet.
We covered Danger Diabolic and The Detective, adapted from novels for our 1968 crime films.
Wait, wasn't that The Detective the prequel to Die Hard?
They were both written by Roderick Thorpe, and yes, it's the same character in the books.
I can't believe they even asked Sinatra if he'd be in Die Hard. That would have been weird.
Once Upon a Time in America was part of our Leone Once Upon a Time trilogy, adapted from Harry Gray's novel.
And we looked at 1968 Best Picture nominees The Lion in Winter, Rachel, Romeo and Juliet, and Oliver!
We also had an Ingrid Bergman series with adaptations like Spellbound, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Murder on the Orient Express, and Gaslight.
We haven't talked about Gaslight.
Stop gaslighting me!
Dive deeper into these books and more adapted films at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Get the full list of adaptations that we've covered on all the Next Reel family of podcasts and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.